Okay, so my name is Kostya. I work in software development for 17 years, and more than 10 years I'm writing code. At this moment I can write on 4 programming languages, but of course it's not equally deep for each language. Also, I'm QA lead. I'm leading multiple projects, 5 projects in Mezzo. We are sponsored here. And founder of QA Guild inside of our Mezzo company. Also, I have a Medium blog where I'm writing about test automation, but not only. In the end, I will share the links to everything. And yes, I'm a big fan of shift-left testing and testing pyramids. So today we are going to talk about design patterns. So we will consider like what is design patterns in general. We will consider what are actually gang of 4 design patterns, and we will also check some of test automation design patterns. So what are design patterns? In simple words, design patterns, it's reusable solutions for the most common problems. So you face with some problem and you know how to resolve this problem. And they usually act like a guides or blueprints. So you have problem and you know, okay, I will use this guide to resolve this problem. What are benefits of using these design patterns? So first, it's a proven solutions. So you don't need to invent any wheel. It was already tested many times and you could be sure that it can be used. Another one, it enables OOP principles. And we all know without OOP principles, our code will look like spaghetti code. Yes, I like spaghetti, but only in Italy. So, shared language. You have colleagues and you can speak with your colleagues. Okay, if there is some problem, you can advise, suggest to your colleagues, use Builder, use Singleton. And that enables like possibility to speak in common language. And of course, it makes our test automation frameworks extensible, the most important. Yes, we need to make our test automation framework to live like for more time, yes. Just a brief history. So first mentioning about patterns was in a book, I think it was published in the 70s, and it was about towns and construction. But this book inspired 4 other software developers, and in 1994, they published another one book about design patterns, and they like mentioned about 23 classical design patterns. Today, we all know these patterns as gang of 4 design patterns. So let's try to see these gang of 4 design patterns. On high level, we can split them on 3 types. Creational, when we work on object creation. Structural, when we compose in classes and objects. And behavioral, when we need communication, collaboration between the objects. You don't need to remember all of them, but we will, of course, verify probably some of the most useful today. When we talk about design patterns, we need to talk about a problem. So we need to resolve some problem. Let's try to check some codes. Here we have configuration manager. And what is the problem of this configuration manager? The problem is if we will instantiate this class multiple times, we need to read and reload our config file multiple times. And of course, we will save also multiple configurations in our memory. And in order to avoid it, we can use Singleton design pattern. It like creational design pattern that provides instance. It helps you to make sure that you have only one instance of the class and provides global access to this class. So let's look at this code, how we can make it as Singleton. So first of all, we need to first of all, we need to make our constructor is private in order to not have possibility to instantiate. Then we need to provide some variable and create instance of this class. And then we are providing this global variable. And if we look at our code, so here I have two variables. And if like I'll try to compare two variables, you may see they will be equal. Let's go to another one problem. So we have a test where we are initializing WebDriver. In this moment, it's Chrome driver, yes? But in the future, we might want to use some other driver. We might want to use Firefox driver. We might want to use Safari driver, so it doesn't matter, yes? And Internet, yes, thank you for Internet Explorer. And yes, like value hard-coded, and of course, you need to override your test. So in order to avoid it, you can use factory method design pattern. It's like coffee machine. Yes, you want to receive coffee, but coffee can be different. So, and yeah. And how to do it? Very easy. So you just creating some method where you specify some parameter. And then inside of the test, as you may see, you can just call this method. Of course, it's not the best example. I tried to simplify here. It will be better to read from configuration. But in general, you can create any driver you want, and you don't need to change your test. Abstract factory. OK, this one is a little bit more difficult, probably the most difficult for today. But let's imagine you have these helpers to access database, like just, I don't know, person table and address table. Today, once more, you use MS SQL provider. Tomorrow, you will decide to use some other provider like PostgreSQL. And it means like you, once again, need to override your test. But if you will use abstract factory, you will just work with abstractions. You will work with abstract interface. And in configuration or like in test pre-setup, you can define implementation of concrete. How to do it? So we need to provide some global interface. Let's call it ISQL Database Manager. Then, of course, we need to provide multiple interfaces to our tables. So in the future, you can extend these interfaces. And then you can already make concrete implementation of our global interface, like here and here. And there is concrete implementation of table. So that's it. And if like we will decide to set up it, so as you may see here, we have like abstraction, our interface. Then we initialize concrete MS SQL Database Manager, or we can use here a factory method, yes, as we did previously. And then inside of the test knows nothing about our implementation. So you just work with abstraction here. Let's go further. Yes, another one problem. This DTO classes. When we want, I don't know, to send some API request, some payload, we create some DTO classes. And here we have a lot of properties or fields, like it depends on programming language. And as you will see, constructor here is also looks like spaghetti. Yes, it's like anti-pattern here. It already contains like 6 parameters. You all know it's not the best solution. And if we also initialize it, it also doesn't look the best. And builder pattern, it's creational design pattern that help you to separate creation of object from implementation, like a burger. Yes, we may want to build a burger, but in some case it might be hamburger, in some case it might be cheeseburger, so you just construct it. And how to do it? We need to create this builder, assign values, return these values, and in the end, when you already ready, we need already to initialize object with these values. So inside of the test, it will look like this. So better than SpecFlow or Cucumber. Let's go to another one problem. Once more, here we have 2 builders. Yes, in both cases, we build 2 objects. And in some cases, we might don't want to repeat all these actions. Like maybe objects are equal. Maybe not in case of these movies, yes, but in general. And what we can do is we can use prototype design pattern. It's very simple design pattern. It just clones an object. So how to do it? You need to have some interface with clone, yes. And once you implement this interface, you can clone this object, sorry. Once more, I will return. So first we create first movie, then we are cloning our first movie and just updating the name of this movie. Okay, also one of my favorite design patterns called facade. So what is the problem here? So we have multiple builders, but like they initialize it with the same parameters and it might duplicate the code. And in order to avoid it, we can use this facade design pattern. It's some kind of reception. So you can come to reception and ask, I want to go to bus, I want to go to restaurant. And like, in order to implement it, also very simple. So you just need to create a class, and then you may create a method that will initialize and return your object. So that's it. And as you may see here, inside of the test, you can go to this reception to movies IP request, and then you can go to genres, to users, to movies. So that's all. So of course, we cannot check all of Genko 4 design patterns, and maybe we don't need. I recommend to read about these ones. But it's time to move to test automation patterns. Yeah, probably it doesn't need introduction. Yes, almost everyone knows about this design pattern. But in general, I need to talk about it. So here, this problem is we are hard coding our elements and action inside of the test. And it leads to code duplication if, as an example, we will decide to reuse it in some other tests. And yes, page objects design pattern that models our web page and our web elements. How to do it? Probably nothing new. So we just creating this page object where we are finding our elements, and we create some methods, some action methods to work with that. And yes, inside of the test, it looks beautiful. But why I decided to talk about page object? Because I want to talk about another one, design pattern. It might have different names, depends on programming language, depends on people. I called it component object model, but it can be page. It can be called page fragment. So the idea is when we have very big page, we might don't want to place everything in one class. So we might want to split. And there are different implementation of this fragment or component object model. I prefer to use subclasses, so just to create some separate class, like here, cities page table. And then I just initialize this class inside of our main page object. But of course, there are different implementation of that. And what's interesting about this design pattern, it's actually very similar, very close to one of Genko 4 design pattern called composite. And the difference will be only if you use composite, you need to use interfaces. So like here, as you may see, I have some interfaces and I implement both parts, cities page table and main class, it like should implement this interface. Lazy initialization. Okay, you've already seen this configuration before, but there is one problem here. So the problem is instance is created too early. And maybe we don't want to create it. Maybe we don't want to get it only when we use it. And in order to do it, we can use this lazy initialization design pattern, which delays creation of our object until we need it. And like if we see implementation in modern way, it looks like this, yes, with arrow function. But if we look at like more old school way, and some of programming languages still use it, so we just need to make sure if our instance exists or does not exist, and create our instance and return if we need it in our property getter. And yes, we've already seen this usage, so nothing new here. Both instances will be the same. There is one solid principle called dependency inversion. It's the last one in solid principles. And there is implementation of this solid principle called dependency injection. So once more, what is the problem here? So we have page object, but Here, we initialize it from driver inside of this page object. And of course, if like we want to use some other driver, we need to change it. We need to update our page object, and that's not the best here. And dependency injection, it's principle or design pattern when we move dependencies outside, so we don't need to create some object inside of our classes. And there are multiple ways how to do it. In this case, probably the most preferable way is constructor injection. As you may see here, I use iWebDriver interface as abstraction. And once I will, of course, initialize this page object, I will pass concrete driver. And there are multiple other ways how to do it. So you can use method or property injection. Property injection for C#, of course, not for Java. Here. Okay, another one, design pattern. How many time? We still have a lot of time. So another one, design pattern. Once more, what's the problem here? So we might have a lot of tests, like, and we run them in parallel. But each time when we create this test, we initialize new drivers, and each time we destroy them. And it causes some memory issues, yes, and we waste resources of our. Of course, maybe in the modern world, it's not like a lot of resources, but anyway. And pull objects, it's about like rating like bikes, yes. So you come there, you can check, okay, if there is some bike available. If no, you can add this bike there. And how to do it? So once more, multiple ways how to do it. Here I simplified code just to show concept of what we should do. So we need to get it. We have some collection of pool, yes, some pool. And what we need to do to first verify if we have some object available. If it's not available, we need to create. And anyway, return in both cases this object, yes. And in the end, we need to release to get back our object to this pool without destroying this object. And we may also have a method to clean up all of our pool. And if we look at our testing code, so you may see like in this picture, I think it's playwright term, in webhook, yes. Before the test, we are getting this driver. After test, we release it, return to the pool. And in the end, we just clean up our pool, our collection from all the objects. Okay, very good question today, like artificial intelligence. So do we still need to use design patterns? I still believe we should use, because AI generates code, but we still, like as software developers, as QAs, we still need to verify this code. So we still need critically think, like if it's not overcomplicated, this code. And yes, we need to make sure our test automation frameworks is maintainable in the future. I can give you just example from one of my workshops, probably months ago. It was workshop about Playwright, where I decided, it was before this MCP servers, yes, release. And I decided to show how to develop Playwright tests with help of ChatGPT, like without coding. And when I was preparing to workshop, everything was great. It was writing great code. But during the workshop, it started to write, such a shit code. And like, I was frustrated. I needed to fix it during this workshop. And of course, like, it's like my experience also. Some conclusions. Use design patterns as a tools, not as a rule. Yes. Start simple. Do not overcomplicate. Because sometimes when we know something new, we are starting to implement it, but maybe it's not needed. Keep your test frameworks simple, yes, and clean. Yes, important to build a test automation framework that outlive your project, or at least you. Yes, it's very nice when some of my colleagues, I was working 6 years ago, still calling me and telling me, oh, we still use your framework. Wow, it's really great. And yes, remember that you are test automation engineer, architect of tests, not just a scripter. Something about like reading. So once more, this Genkov 4 book, it's pretty old, but if you want, it's still useful. Oh, I'm sorry. I'll start. Also, if you didn't read, I believe a lot of people read this book, but anyway, I would like to mention it. It's clean code. Website Refactoring Guru. They have very beautiful pictures and examples on different languages. And there are a lot of trainings on different platforms. So even on YouTube, so you can find it. There's links I promised to LinkedIn, to my Medium account, and I think to GitHub. And yeah, that's all. If you have some questions. Oh my God, I did it even like earlier.
Yes, we have, of course. Thank you. So, any comments, questions about patterns?
Water.
It's a good pattern for question. Oh, thank you.
Hey, I have one question about the, for example, builder pattern.
Yep.
Because in Java, we had something called Lombok. So it was generating, let's say, method for each property. In the further Java versions, it was by default, if I'm not mistaken. But is there any for TypeScript? Do you know if there is the dependency that will generate the method for each property?
Honestly, I don't know. I never used anything like that. So, but I was using Builder previously.
Yeah, yeah.
But that's a good question. That's actually a good question to think to search.
Yeah, yeah. Because now I started thinking that it might be very, very nice to use.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I would say I mostly use TypeScript like with Playwright, of course, like a lot of people. So there were not such complicated scenarios for such things. But it's a good question. You catch me. I need to research.